True.
So Laura, I was on the march
Oh
on
yes, I saw
Saturday,
that. I saw your Twitter feed.
and
Don't worry, I've been Twitter stalking you.
I'm glad. I'm really glad that you were aware of its existence because so many people. I mean, like I went riding and they
Yeah.
asked me what I've been up to. They do, and I said, "Oh, I went on the big march the weekend." They said, "What march?" It wasn't in the papers,
No, I know.
and it makes you realise that so many people, particularly of the older generation, are
Yes.
still stuck on their. They watch the BBC, they
Yeah.
read the Daily Telegraph, and they imagine they're getting the news.
I know. I
It's
know.
extraordinary.
I think that's the most depressing thing about this because no, it wasn't. It made the Sunday Times. It was around page 3, and the headline was quite small, and the headline was, 10 arrested at, lockdown march or something, and a
Yes.
picture of a police officer with lots of blood down his face. So they were
Have you have
any headlines that ran it were all that these are basically violent far right thugs. That was
have you
if you knew about
have you
it.
seen the footage
I
of
haven't.
that particular incident? Okay.
No,
There's
no.
there's a guy. Yeah. This is the thing. Everything is recorded if you know where to look.
Sure.
There was a I mean, to a degree, the police provoked it by forming two lines and kind of marching to confront these people who were basically playing music in Hyde Park after long after the march was over.
Yeah.
So it couldn't really be connected with the march. I mean,
Oh,
unless
okay.
unless everything that takes place in Hyde Park is de facto a march, which I don't quite believe. The So the guy who was provoking the police, he went in front of them and really sort of wound them up. He was wearing a mask and he was obviously Antifa. Nobody, not one single person on that march was wearing a
No,
mask
I would have
because
thought
why
not.
would you? I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's anathema to us. We don't
Yes.
believe in masks. It was fantastic being with so many people.
Yes.
Um, not wearing masks. And the guy's behavior was completely um it contradicted everything I saw on the march. That
Yes.
everyone was friendly to the police, they were happy. I think the police were I mean, we got on perfectly well. I had one exchange with a burly police sergeant who was telling the people around me to keep moving because otherwise they'd end up being squashed by the people behind, and there could be a sort of a safety incident. And
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
his only concern. That was the only kind of that was as heavy-handed as the policing got. And
Yes.
then suddenly you have this incident which is completely um, just not at all like anything that's happened before, and you realize we are being played. This guy was either an agent provocateur working with the authorities, or he was just Antifa doing what Antifa do. I mean, I suspect possibly the former. It was all a bit too
I mean, I just
suspicious
think.
to me that
I
they
mean,
needed that headline.
yeah. I mean, I mean, even if it wasn't, look. If it was one person out of how many were on the march, 20. I mean, I don't want to say that.
No, Laura, he
Thousands.
wasn't. He was
No,
wearing a
no, I get
mask, and
that.
he was not like us.
As I said, it's more the media coverage and the media again. We said it every week. They are so biased. I mean, as you say, I don't watch any of it. I can't remember the last time I turned on BBC News. I don't watch Mar. I don't watch any of it. I do get the Times just to know what they're saying. And I now and again I listen to Radio 4. But yes, unfortunately for pretty much everybody over the age of 45, and even in our what we would traditionally have called allies, they get all their news from the BBC and from the papers, and that's it. And if there's what they say and they actually accept it is truth. And I don't believe anything they're saying. But it's annoying, yeah. And the fact that the march is completely ignored. Well, I mean, it's just typical. It's just but because there's somebody did up somebody's flat somewhere in Downing Street, which is like a much bigger story. That somebody again, we are not people to defend Boris Johnson, but this story is such nonsense in that, first of all, it's only £60,000. You've already blown like what, 60 billion or something on all this COVID nonsense, and you're worried about a £60,000 donation not being declared. it's just it's
that whole
yeah.
story. I
It's
mean,
just
not
I
just
know
that story,
it's
but the
all of it.
the Dominic
Yeah.
Cummings
I know.
blog post and
Yeah.
the events leading up to that, where Cummings was accused of being a leaker of what? I mean, it's
The leader of a
pantomime, it's
lockdown we all
theatre.
knew was coming, right? I just, and then I mean the other question is, what's the motive for saying, that Boris had said, I'd rather see the bodies piled high. I mean, I don't believe it. And secondly, but I am interested in to see what is the motive behind that. Why are they running that story? Is it to
I think it's obvious.
bounce him into another lockdown in autumn as easily as he can? Well, you tell me, yeah, because you're
Well,
in it more than I am.
I mean, yeah, it's obvious what's going on here. I mean, the media in cahoots with this horribly bent, useless, dodgy administration is gaslighting us to believing that
Yeah,
there is only one position to take on lockdown, and that lockdown is necessary, and
yeah,
that this was what protected us from mass deaths. So here is Boris Johnson saying something. I think he probably did say it, saying something with actually, I think any sensible person would agree with, that yeah, actually I'd do anything to avoid another lockdown. I mean, obviously it's not very good for a prime minister to be talking about I don't care about bodies piling high, but I mean this was colloquial speech. He wasn't
yeah.
making,
Sure.
it wasn't a newspaper article or a Commons speech. I'd like to hear that Boris had actually said stuff like that, because it shows that he's got a sense of perspective and
Yeah,
proportion. That
yeah,
finally, we recognise that it is a trade-off to a degree between. Well, I don't even buy that line actually. I don't think it is a trade-off. I think there should never have been lockdowns. I think there should never have been masks. I think there should never have been quarantines. And I think we'd have got through fine. In a Sweden style, but what you see is how we are being manipulated. That this is the story. We are now being invited to be shocked that
yes,
Boris could consider there is anything more important in the world than locking us down forever.
yeah. No,
And
I
that
know.
is really
Yeah.
dodgy.
No, well, I'm
Do you
glad.
think it was leaked by Gove?
He probably. I mean, I'm glad you said that, just for my own clarity, and I'm sure the readers or the listeners, and also, yeah, because everything now and what the inquiry, which they will eventually get, will absolutely be the only narrative now rewriting history will be not only was lockdown right, but we didn't lock down hard enough and early enough, right? So
Yes.
everything is directed towards that, and that's. I mean, I could write the inquiry now. Justice whatnot will
Yes.
say, well, it was he did dither, and it was outrageous, and so X men. And then some scientists will say X many lives could have been saved if we'd locked down in November or October and stopped anybody from doing
Or
anything.
10 years ago,
I mean,
actually, would have been a lot safer.
people understand they basically locked down for 6 months from November because it was only 2 weeks in December. So, I
Yeah.
mean, it's just, as you said, the whole thing is nonsense. Everything is gaslighting. There's a sense of comedy and there's a sense of Roman emperor about Boris sort of sitting there with his harem, his latest, lover of half his age, and she's demanding whatever fancy wallpaper that she's demanding, and then they have to go off and find someone to fund it because he's too busy paying off all the previous lovers he's had and all his previous kids. And you're just like, this is what happens. Again, from me, from a sort of a cultural point of view, this is what happens when your personal life is a shambles, right? Is you leave yourself exposed. People will think, oh, this could have happened to anybody. Look, whatever you say about Keir Starmer, it wouldn't happen to Keir Starmer because Keir Starmer doesn't have, a line of lovers going back 20 years that he's had to pay off. So Boris is tight for cash, right? And he has a lifestyle of of somebody who he needs a lot more money to run the lifestyle he has, right? Because if you want to have
Mm.
the 4 wives and the 10 kids, that's going to cost you. and he doesn't have it. So that's why he has to get out his begging bowl, every 2 or 3 years probably to fund whatever the latest scheme is, to keep the latest lover happy. So to me, there's an element of comedy to it. But yeah, I mean, all of it, the serious side is all of it is saying that, we should have locked down harder and earlier. Yeah. Go on.
That's right. That we're being manipulated. I mean, actually, the fact that we're even talking about Boris's sex life, it really would make no difference whether Keir Starmer was running the country or whether Gove was running the country or whether Dominic Cummings was back in the. It's all pantomime. These people are just irrelevant to what's going on. This is happening across the world. You look at what's happening in India right now. Look at how that country is being everything that's happening is being manipulated to fit into this agenda, which is this is a deadly plague. We must vaccinate. We must have these vaccine passports. Any other way is irresponsible and is killing people. And it's extraordinary. I mean, you've got people who probably couldn't even place India on a map suddenly quoting India as the paradigm which demonstrates that this is serious. I actually had this problem. I had this problem the other night with some friends who came to play bridge. The husband is skeptical on most issues, absolutely completely buying into the whole government narrative about the lie narrative that this is a pandemic and that we must vaccinate and vaccine passports are good and the vaccines don't kill you and everything he believed all this shit. But his wife started citing India. Well, what do you think about India and Brazil? And I was thinking, well, I know what I think about the kind of the fake news coming out of India and Brazil. I don't know what's actually happening there, but I suspect it's not as it's being depicted. It's everything you read in the newspapers, and this really bothers me as a journalist. There's you conservative woman girls, and who else? I mean, there's the critic to a degree, and there's me. Nobody else is doing their job. They've all given up.
I know.
And this is what people were saying at the march, by the way. They were loving you and me. They were saying how we are how much. No, seriously.
I feel I haven't been pulling my weight, as you know, for the last month, but there's been crazy stuff going on at home. Not crazy, just refurbishment and stuff. But yeah.
No, but people respected you because you were doing the mother thing. And how is your pregnancy going?
Oh well, bumping. That is not a lockdown diet, people. Yeah, it's all going well. Thank you. Yeah, it's good. It's good. So that's the main thing.
And I think people are happy that you are a kind of good Catholic, mum doing the kind of because it's old school.
Yeah,
and people are saying things like I don't like this new world where we are muzzling our children in schools and forcing them to take experimental mRNA therapy.
Well, it all links in because I'm going to go back. So this vaccine passport, which, as you know, seems to be the end game. You're like, okay, so I totally don't think anybody cares about this coming story. They only care about whether or not they're going to Greece. So again, I'm reading in the Times today. So even if you're pro-vaccine, right, passport, all it does is, okay, it lets you go to Spain and it lets you come back. But even if Spain is on the green list, you still have to take, I think, 2 tests, they said. I think that's what it said in the paper, either 2 or what, but at least they test. So think about it. Say I didn't care and I thought I'm going to get my vaccine so I can get my vaccine passport so I can go and sum myself from Spain. We have 5 in our family, same as you. The tests are around 100 quid a pop, right? There was a story that they'd reduced. They're not. They're 100 quid a pop. So if they get the kids to test, which they will, then that's an extra 500 quid, even with your passport and your digital passport, right? That can be zapped all the way around the world. And even if it's on the green list, on your return, you're still adding 500 quid to your ticket. So, I mean, what's the benefit, right? I mean, even if I was setting up a vaccine passport scheme, if I was in government, I was going to sell it, I'd be like, okay, this is an actual passport. You are exempt from everything, right? You don't need a PCR test going out. You don't need a PCR test going in. This is going to save you 500 quid. But you're like, there's no benefit to it. And of course, even if I mean, eventually, as you know, they will want to vaccinate the kids. So even if I was kind of going to wobble on it, or you get some people going, well, I don't really want it, but I want to travel. So the two adults get your vaccine because you want your vaccine passport. It's like, well, there's no way I'm getting the kids done. Right. So you're back in square one anyway. You're going to have to jump all the hoops and get all the tests anyway. So, I mean, pick your line, people. Just because you think if you get the vaccine, you're going to save yourself 200 quid. If you've got three kids, your choice is either to give them this vaccine, which is completely and utterly unethical, or you're down 300 quid. And 300 quid is a lot of money to people. I mean, it's a lot of money to me, and mightn't be to other people, So they're selling this as a great sort of, passport to freedom, but it's not. It's just. I mean, those passports, those tests are such a racket. I mean, some people are making a lot of money out of this.
Mostly friends of the government.
That's what I would have thought.
Like
yeah.
Matt Hancock's local publican, and it's extraordinary this orgy of corruption that we've seen in the last year, and it's one of those weird situations where what's he called, Fox Batterer? The kimono Fox Batterer weirdo?
I still don't
went
like
to
him.
Durham.
I know.
No, he's a tosser. But sometimes
Mano or something. Oh, I've forgotten. Readers should know.
Jolyon Wag.
He has a posh name.
Wag. Yes. Yeah. Anyway, so Jolyon Wag, he does seem to be fighting a few legal cases against the government corruption. So hats off for that. Although I look at his tweets sometimes, and they are still so sanctimonious and woke. And I think what people don't understand is that woke, the whole identity politics thing, everything that we can't stand about the subversion of academe, etc., the corruption of television. Well, like it needed corrupting. Yeah. But everything that we object to on the kind of culture wars front is just another branch of what's happening in the biosecurity state front. Yes. It's all part of the same overall plan to crush our culture and our civilization. So I kind of think people who are tweeting woke tweets while simultaneously fighting lawsuits against government corruption, they don't quite get it. They're still kind of living in this
they don't. I mean, you will certainly can get an overlap between us and people who you would think we have nothing else in common kind of thing. That sometimes happens. You find yourself on a march with Jeremy Corbyn or whatever, but you always have to be very cautious about it. Yeah, or Piers Corbyn. You always have to be very cautious about it. And the thing is, I mean, looking at so he runs the Good Law Project, and I think they did an interview with him in the Sunday Times. I didn't run it in full, but what always annoys me about this, and I hold myself partly responsible, the Good Law Project are, there'll be a group of barristers, and I mean, a lot of barristers or human rights barristers are all left wing, and they test the government on various. So say there's a cut to social welfare, there'll always be a case on that, etc., etc. But what annoys me is that there isn't a right wing equivalent. So you're not talking about being so there isn't a group of barristers to get together. I mean, you could say the Free Speech Union would be the closest you'd get for it, whatever lawyers are working on that, where, something comes up and maybe the Christian concern. So I've just undermined my argument. But basically the equivalent of a right-wing lawyers who will take certain strategic cases, against the government, to test whatever mad policy they've brought in. I mean, it can happen, but they're not as coherent as, say, something like the Good Law Project is, because the left are very well organized, and that's always totally. They're incredibly well organized. That's why they've had all the big cultural wins. This gets me onto my rant about the silent majority, if you want me to do that, which I may. Whereas the righteous aren't.
Talk about, because I when you've had your rant about the silent majority, I'll tell you about two people I met.
Yes.
In the last few weeks. Tell me, give me your silent majority.
It links back into, because there's a few stories have come and gone since we saw you last. So I got there. I was the only one on the right, and I think even you, me, may disagree on this. So the Muhammad cartoons in the schools.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And there was a big hoo-ha. Now, of course, I don't agree with the protests, and I don't think the teacher should have been fired. That goes without saying. Okay.
Yeah.
But what I do disagree with is this idea, and it stopped me joining the Free Speech Union, is that, we defend any speech anywhere. And I'm just thinking, what are you talking about? I mean, schools, first of all, are one place where actually speech is quite restricted. Okay. And also prescripted, if that's it's prescribed what you can say. So you can't, you can't go into a school and give a speech and just say that is obviously anti-Semitic or obviously racist or obviously sexist or whatever, right? Everybody accepts that you cannot do that. You might agree or disagree on what constitutes, each category. So that's the first thing. And actually, when you think about it, well, teachers go in there and they actually have to teach a certain curriculum. So that, you can't go into a science class and then start even talking about English. And surely this is what the right get angry about, is when you hear about a school that's gone completely woke. And you're like, well, really, when you push it, you actually are saying that those teachers should not be speaking in that fashion, or shouldn't be teaching, critical race theory and saying to white kids that they're inherently racist. Okay, so let's just abandon this idea that schools are some sort of free speech, oasis. It's not question time. The classroom isn't question time. It isn't this podcast. And the other thing, of course, is the audience, is that the kids can't get up and leave, right? Whereas if you're on you're in Speaker's Corner and you're in Hyde Park and you hear somebody say something offensive, well, you just go on your way. Okay, so when it comes to free speech, viewers, it's always what's being said, who's saying it, and who's the audience. So this is why back in the day when the Christian right actually had some leeway and would get angry about a book or a film, say, the argument would always be, well, don't go and see the film, which is true. There's an element of truth to that. But as I said, the kids can't get up and leave. They have to sit there and listen to whatever either woke nonsense is coming out of the teachers, or indeed somebody waving around a Muhammad cartoon. But so that was my first thing. And then I just think about, because it came, no, I don't want to do any of that. So then it came across, and then I don't know if you saw the story soon afterwards about the Pimlico Secondary School, where this is quite a left-wing school in Pimlico, very well known. And it hadn't hit the news, but previously the kids had taken down a British Union flag and burnt it. And basically the headmaster, I think, had to issue a grovelling apology over uniform policy, where he said hair must be neat so afros can't block someone's view and hijabs can't be too colourful. And of course, the kids won on this, and they got a grovelling apology, and but it all overlaps. And then so then I'm thinking about, then you get, well, who it comes back to this silent majority. Okay, so you get people who go, Lawrence Fox sometimes says this, most people aren't into this whole woke agenda, blah, blah, blah. And I stand for the silent majority. And I'm like, yeah, but the silent majority are silent. Therefore, they're completely useless. So I'm really digging at my own side, because you get so many people that in their job, right, or say something happens at this school, it could be small, and they'd rather, I'm just going to keep the peace. I'm just not going to speak up. And I'm like, no, viewer. Yes, you have to pick your battles. I agree with that. And I don't think you need to go in there all guns blazing over something small or trivial. But on the other hand, if you feel your school or something you actually have control of, unlike, say, Boris's flat being done up, you have to use your voice. And so
I don't know.
What I mean? No,
I can't agree with you on the Bradford school, because actually I saw the people who were stirring this trouble. There are these sort of activist groups which are there to cause trouble, and that's what's happening. And that teacher, his life has been ruined for trying to teach a kind of.
No, I knew he disagreed. No, he specifically used the Charlie Hebdo cartoons.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not.
We don't have blasphemy laws.
Yeah, I knew you'd say that, but it wasn't just a picture of Muhammad, was it? Those pictures are Muhammad with a bomb a bomb on his head, okay? So you're implying that essentially Muslims are terrorists. Now, look, listen, I am nothing, if not, I like to be consistent. If, say, 20 years ago, when the IRA were blowing stuff up all over Britain, somebody brought in, you know, an image of St. Patrick with, you know, carrying a Semtex suitcase into an Irish Catholic school in the middle of Birmingham, would I have a problem with that? Yeah, I would. I mean, I wouldn't go down there and ask for the teacher to be fired, but I would raise it and I would say, this isn't acceptable. I don't think it's helpful, you know, and it's a school. So it's not just, it wasn't just that it was a blasphemy image, because there are other images of Muhammad he could have used. And remember that those images, those cartoons were used specifically to offend, right? Because that magazine is a satirical magazine, right?
I'm not buying into this whole
that's what I'm saying.
Offense taking is a kind of national sport.
I mean,
look, I tell you what, Laura,
yeah,
I totally like the.
If someone went in there and started, like, into my kid's Catholic school and started trashing, you know, Catholic teaching, yeah, I would speak up. And if someone said back to me, oh well, this is free speech, I'd be like, this is a school. It's not question time. Right? What are we going to do about it? I'm not saying I would gather my mob together and march on down there and ask teacher X to be fired, but I reject this idea that there is just some sort of free speech, you know, everywhere. It's nonsense. We've loads of laws against specific speech.
I like the heroic loneliness of the furrow that you're ploughing on this one, and I totally respect that. I think, you know, I disagree with you, but I also kind of think, why are we awful incident, but why are we talking about this when we are just losing our entire civilization?
Yeah, but
I mean, that's a facet of it, but actually there's so much worse shit going down right now.
I think what happens in schools is really important, and most of it comes from the left, okay? So if you want to set out your parameters, you have to be consistent about it. So, you know, if someone comes in and say trashes the Queen or trashes Churchill and all the rest of it, in a complete, not in a sort of let's have an academic discussion about this, or you had the guy at, what was it, the guy at your school, at Eton, who is being suspended.
It wasn't my school, but my son's
school. Well, it's your son's school, yeah.
Yeah, the thing is,
you know, so these issues are important.
I just think, given that we're the country, look, let's get real here. Given we're the country that invented, that gave the world Gilray and Hogarth, inventors of satirical humor.
Yes.
I think it's not unfair to expect people who live in this country to be able to deal with satirical cartoons which are flashed briefly across their eyes, the teacher having warned them first. I think you're choosing a really, really weird hill to die on there.
I'm not,
if I may say so.
No,
it's got, I don't know what kind of features it's got. It's like it's a blue and purple and red hill with spots on it. It's the weirdest hill I've ever seen.
It's a hill that says schools are not free-for-alls. Therefore, don't go into my kid's school and start saying that, like, girls can become boys, right, or boys can become girls. It's actually quite an important hill in terms of, you know, objective truth is important, and you shouldn't just randomly go in there and kind of mock, as I said, into a captive audience that says, and just expect people to say, oh yeah, that's fine. You can just trash my beliefs. I mean, this is the whole taking the knee thing, right? Weren't we all pretty? Well, maybe you weren't. Weren't we all like, why are all these sports stars taking the knee in the middle of all these, right before, you know, before sports matches?
Are you saying I was supporting it?
But that's their free speech. But that's their free. If they want to take a knee, take a knee.
No, it's not, they're not speaking. They're just going on their knees. And actually, look, and also, actually, Laura.
Yeah.
It's the problem I have with that is that they were never exposed to the audience, the people who pay their salaries, because of the anomalous situation in which we find ourselves, where people haven't been able to go to football matches. I mean, can you imagine a Millwall crowd reacting to that, to taking a knee? I mean, did you hear Toby? Well, yes, the worst. Was it West Ham? I think. Toby went to the FA Cup semi-final. and I think there were 5,000 people in the
All right.
crowd in a stadium designed for 80,000, and they
Yeah.
all had to wear masks. And I said, and did they take the knee? And he said, yes, yes, they did. And the worst thing was, as they did so, a ripple of polite applause echoed around the
There
stadium.
you go.
And I was thinking, yeah,
Yeah.
because that's what happens when you give tickets to middle class wankers. But I no, I think these people should suffer career damage for doing this kind of thing.
But that's, I
By the
agree
way,
with you. But I
can I
mean,
change the subject
you
to
know, yeah, go on.
your
Something we
topic?
ground. Oh yeah,
You're into
don't.
tennis, aren't you?
Well, I can't play that much now, but yeah, I
No,
thought.
no, but you like what you care about Wimbledon, don't you?
Well, yeah,
Don't you?
yeah, I
I
do
confuse
care.
you with
Well,
some other
I'm
girl.
just no, I'm just one of these weird people that I much prefer playing than I do
No,
actually
yeah,
watching. But
obviously,
yeah,
it's way better playing than
yeah,
watching.
I know.
But
Go on,
I was
I know,
thinking,
I know Wimbledon.
so Wimbledon, I think I'm going to boycott Wimbledon this year because of the, I suppose, is it the Lawn Tennis Association or that's the one that organises Wimbledon, isn't it?
Yeah,
They've decided that all the players cannot rent houses like they normally do and hang out with their families. They've got to stay in a special quarantine hotel, and the audiences are really,
I know
the
they're
crowds are going to be
reduced. Yeah, yeah, I
much
know. I
reduced.
saw
So
that.
so I happen to be on one of those WhatsApp groups where there are various people who know serious amounts about tennis, let's say, let me put
Yeah,
it that way. And I put out this question: why don't these players, the leading players, take a stand and just
yeah,
say
I
fuck off?
agree.
Because in the same way that my hero is what's he called,
Djokovic.
Max Verstappen
Oh right.
in motor racing. Do you know why?
Oh, I don't
Because
know. He
Max
refused to take the knee,
Verstappen
or he.
refused to play the woke bullshit game that
Yeah.
ghastly, what's the English guy that really one who wins every
Oh, he's insufferable. Yeah,
Wankerton.
Lewis
Ian,
Hamilton.
no,
Lewis
Lewis
Hamilton.
Wankerton. Yeah,
Absolutely
we hate him.
insufferable.
Absolutely. I hope he loses every race ever, ever.
No,
I
no,
hope
there's
he.
something about him. He is. There are no
I
words.
don't think it's enough for him to lose. He's got to come last, and his tires have got to go. Oh, I don't know, and
Okay.
he's got to lose all his money. I think
No,
that's
tell
the
me
only
about
thing.
stay on Wimbledon now because I no, I agree, but this is the same thing.
So,
This is my whole silent majority thing. Oh well,
okay,
you know, I just have to. I don't want to lose my job. I want to play Wimbledon. No,
yeah,
tell them to fuck off.
Laura,
I
this is
agree,
exactly it.
but then, but then
I
don't
am
agree.
living proof.
Yeah.
I have completely sacrificed my career
Oh,
in
no,
the mainstream
you
media,
have. I mean, I agree.
which pays absolutely, and I don't feel a shred
Yeah.
uh, guilt about it or whatever you're supposed to feel about. I don't feel awkward or
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
really happy to have cut loose from those
I
mofos.
wonder.
Um,
I wonder if Federer is going to play though, because I doubt he's going to sign up to that, right? Because
okay,
his whole family travel with him. He has what, the four kids. He's got two sets of twins, and he hasn't played
can I
before now because he's like, I'm not playing without a crowd. Why would I do that?
can
Yeah,
I
yeah. And
read you
same with Djokovic.
really interesting response?
From who?
Um, I'm not going to say who, but from a tennis expert.
Oh yeah, go on.
And
I
so I
know.
said, why don't the leading players tell them to fuck off? Because
Yeah,
money,
yeah,
okay, is nice, but principles are more important.
yeah.
And somebody said, it's a good point, James. And the Barcelona, James, I like when they talk to me personally. And the Barcelona tennis event last weekend was played to a packed house, apparently. So Wimbledon has no excuse for these reduced
And
crowds.
also, aren't all the restrictions supposed to be lifted in the middle of June?
Yes,
So it makes none of it
exactly.
makes any
So
sense. No, I
So
agree.
here you've got this, and this is not just in tennis. It's happening in rugby. It's happening in
Yeah,
football. All this kind of bedwetting stuff is being
yeah.
gold plated, if you can gold plate, or sort of yellow piss plated, by the people who run these sporting events, who seem
I
to be
agree.
really woke,
Yeah,
obsessed with diversity, obsessed with Black Lives Matter, and don't seem to have much love of the sport. It's
look, I'm
all
telling you,
about
people
virtue
need to take
signaling.
a stand from the bottom. You know, it's interesting because one of my tennis friends So everybody, if you're part of a club, they're all allocated, I think, a certain amount of tickets, and most clubs will run a ballot. Okay. Now I've never gone into the ballot because I've always been like, the kids are too small, and actually the tickets are too expensive, and I don't want to sit there and watch tennis for 5 hours. I'd rather play it. So anyway, but one of my friends did get the ticket, and I think he got it for like centre court or court one, like one of the big ones. So it didn't happen last year, and he's like, I'm like, oh well, that's unfortunate. And he said, oh, it doesn't matter, it'll roll over. Now, this is, of course, way back last year in June. He said, oh, it doesn't matter. It'll roll over until next year. And I texted him at the time. I'm like, are you serious? We're all going to be in NHS Stadium, or we're all going to be in the stadiums by then shouting, NHS, NHS, NHS. And like, I've been more-ish kind of proved right, because they're vastly reducing the tickets, right? I think there's only, I don't know. It's the whole thing. It's just ludicrous. Yeah. I mean, it makes no sense. You're outside, you're in a stadium, and you'll all have to wear your stupid masks. And like, who the hell wants to do that?
That's the thing.
Yeah.
I really want to go to a church service, but I will not go to a church service with bloody masks.
No, I will not. But it's depressing.
And I want to drink communion out of an actual cup that people have drunk out of, and that their gob has gone in, like we used to do in the old days. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Totally. That's part of the deal.
No, I know. I get it. Is depressing. Actually, that brings me on. So I think not a. Oh God!
Hang on, I haven't finished my tennis story.
Oh, sorry. Go.
Story.
Yeah.
This expert person said the problem is history with a capital H. Djokovic, who is very anti-vaccine and has been publicly named and shamed for doing so by the tennis media, is currently on 18 slams, 2 away from Federer and Nadal,
I get all that, but
all-time record, and has limited time left to catch them, especially with all youngsters coming along. A difficult dilemma for him as he is opposed to what Wimbledon has planned. But guess who's totally on board with it, apparently?
Oh, well, go on. I can just go on.
Well, who would be?
I don't know.
I mean,
he's
Scottish. He's woke, probably.
He's also really annoying, Andy Murray. They do have 4 kids though, so I always like that. I think they've had their 4th or they've had their 3rd. I forget. Yeah, I know he's annoying. He's not Lewis Hamilton levels of annoying, but he is kind of annoying.
Nobody is Lewis Hamilton levels of annoying. Lewis Hamilton's got to be the most annoying alleged sport. I mean, it's not really a sport, is it?
No,
not really. Driving a car, no. I don't think.
No.
It's not like
tennis. I'll tell you that much.
It's not like frog hunting. It's not a proper sport.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, I agree. I forget what the rant was I was about to go on, because it was quite a good one. A mask. Oh yeah, no, because who was the MP I mentioned? The woman, the old woman. She had an affair with John Major. Who the fuck does that?
Edwina Curry.
Yeah. So she's on a while ago. I just saw it on Twitter. She's on one of the TV boxes, and they're going on about vaccine passport. Should you need to show vaccine passport in a pub? And she goes full Karen. I like to use the Karen a lot. You know the Karen thing, yeah? Yeah. Middle-aged women who complain about everything. So she goes full Karen. She's like, yes, they should be barred from the pub. I don't want any of these unvaccinated people anywhere near me. Blah, blah, blah. Full boomer, full Karen. And you're just like, man, I mean, you are the reason. And she's like, and I was thinking, she's like, I don't want them anywhere near me. I don't want anywhere near me. And I'm just thinking, actually, I would like to take you up on that offer, Edwina, because I don't want to be anywhere near you. So when you said about being on the mask or on the march with the unmasked, so if they're going to bring in these stupid vaccine passports for the pubs, can we have a pub that opts out of it? And entry is you can only go in without a mask, without social distancing. And I mean, you can go in if you've got a vaccine if you want, and obviously like no papers, so that we can actually just spend time together with normal, non-hysterical, reasonable people, and all the crazy other people can go to the pubs with their vaccine passports. There's got to be an audience for that. But
I don't think that this is totally off the cards. Just to go back to the march a second.
Yeah.
The atmosphere was just something else. You could not have had a more mixed, if you were a kind of liberal Guardian reading type, and you wanted a kind of the perfect example of multiracial Britain, it was there. there was 100-year-old bloke there. There were loads and loads of black people, and all the ethnic minorities. There were sort of white upper middle class people from the shires. But the great thing was everyone was the kind of person you'd like to hang out with.
Right,
You'd want to go to the pub with these people. The
then.
atmosphere would be really good. These are the best of Britain, and it's not about class, and it's not about gender, and it's not about race. It's about values, and these people all have the same values.
Yeah, it really is about values.
Far more diverse than a Black Lives Matter march, and you can bet your life that every single black person there has never, ever once in their life played the identity politics card, the race card, because they're not that kind of people. And I wanted to tell you a story about somebody I met on the. I went campaigning on the Lawrence Fox bus.
Oh yeah, go on. I saw him in Bromley. I didn't talk to. I just took I was shopping. So yeah, I saw him there.
You should have gone to say hi. So it's great. So he's got this double-decker bus with the top off, and one of those tourist buses.
Yeah.
And at the end of the march, we drove back down Oxford Street, and he had a loudspeaker, and he was telling people to take their masks off, and we were singing, "Take your masks off for the lads." It was funny. Anyway, so earlier in the week, I went on his bus, and I was talking about education. Got into conversation with this black woman sitting behind me.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, that's interesting. You got a black woman in the Lawrence Fox campaign bus, given that he's so racist,
Yeah. I heard it.
I thought she'd be the most fantastic interview. So I got talking to her, and she said, and she was from France originally. Right. She was born in France, but had to move to England when she was 18. I said, "Are you happy here?" She said, "I love this country so much." She said, "I've been so happy here. I much prefer it to France. I've never experienced racism once in my life here. You get racism in France, but people who say it's a problem here, they're lying." Yeah. And she'd been so furious when she'd seen Loza being accused of racism for his remarks on Question Time, and she recognized instantly that this was the kind of the radical left playing its kind of Alinskyite rules for radicals game to destroy a target they didn't like, nothing to do with fairness or whatever. And I said, this is would you say this on camera? And she said, "I'm really sorry, no. If I were recognized," she said, I work in the civil service. And if I were recognized, I would lose my job. And she said, I'm better off serving our cause where I am anonymously, believing the things I do. I'm more useful than making a quick hit on a video and then being kicked out of my job. And I had a similar conversation with a female barrister the other day, who I also met. She said again, there are loads and loads of people in your profession, the legal profession, who think as we do, but cannot say it, cannot admit it. And they know it would be career death. So she said, but do you not think it's more important that we're there, keeping quiet, but
doing what?
We're sort of,
I think it's easy for me. Obviously, it's easy to, look, a person has to eat, right? And if you need your job, you need your job. But again, I think, this, what annoys me a lot is the self-censorship. So say you're literally just chatting, to another colleague. I'm not talking about even doing podcasts or tweeting. You're chatting to another colleague and he says something that's left-wing or whatever, and he assumes that, or she assumes that you agree, and I think a simple, actually, I don't agree with you on that, can be quite powerful. What can they do to you?
Well, that's you and me.
Say it was Trump or the president, someone's trashing Trump or whatever, and you just say, well, actually, he has his issues, but I don't like Biden. I don't like him. So I have this with the kids sometimes, because obviously they're like, who do you want to win? And I'm like, well, I want Trump to win. And everybody in the school would have been like, oh my God, he is like the Antichrist.
Ooh, he smells.
Yeah. And there was probably a bit of back and forth. And I have said to them, look, you don't need to get into an argument with people. They're only little, but people say things that often, what I'm saying is a lot of these beliefs are very shallow. They're only skin deep. And just saying, actually, I don't agree with you on that. The person behind them, the other part of the silent majority that your female barrister thinks is there, says, yeah, you're right. I'm with her,
Actually,
and
I'm going to
so when
embolden Laura.
Yeah, when I say, the silent majority, see, I'm sorry, but that lacks courage. Again, I am not saying, burn your career down so that you're you're on the you have
I am
furlough. Well,
I've done
yeah.
it.
Yeah, I know. So there's certain things, but this is, you're all kind of already, in a way, you're paid to be opinionated, right? I get it if you're a barrister or whatever, but I do think, because what these people don't realize is, so if they give way on A, okay, you give way on line, and this being the last 40 years, you give way on line A that, okay, it doesn't really matter, I'm not that big worked up about it. Then you're always playing defense, right? Then suddenly they come for you further back and they want more and they want more and they want more. Yeah. And then there's something really critical. Then you're on your hill, right? You're on your hill that you're going to be willing to die on, okay? But you have surrendered on so much that it's so much more difficult for you once you get to the hill you actually care about. And in a way, I think, I agree. Because I've always had a reputation of being sort of contrary or whatever. So people sort of just know, oh, well, that's Laura. But they would I doubt I've ever paid a big price for it. And the other thing is, you have to be willing to lose friends over this. That sounds bad. And I definitely, I'm pretty sure, have lost friends over it. And it's like, if they are like, look, I just can't be friends with her anymore because of X, then it's sad. It's sad. But that person, as I always say, is not a true friend to you. Because I wouldn't, there's probably only 2 issues I would not be friends with somebody over. So I wouldn't do it to them. And if they're willing to do it to you, then you're better off without them. And then that, of course, that opens up space for somebody else to come in that does agree with you certain things, and you may form a bond with, etc., etc. So it's not, what I'm saying, the self-censorship is completely wrong. That you shouldn't be doing that. Again, you don't need to go in there and sort of burn the place down. But if it comes up, and when people assume that your opinions are certain, or are on a certain issue, kind of, how dare they? No, actually, it isn't. So that was one thing. And, because you said it as well. So I read one of your blogs on Breitbart. Oh, which one was it? But you said about how political correctness, and how Theodore Dalrymple had said political correctness was actually, again, a form of humiliation, in that people say things that they don't believe. And this is definitely what the transgender thing is, right? You're sort of forced into accepting that men can turn into women, etc., which is just impossible. And they don't, well, actually, I do think they want you to believe it. But even if they don't want you to believe it, they want you to say it. They want you to actually lie. And then a part of you dies slowly.
Yes, it does, as well as Tinkerbell.
Yeah, so it's not. It is a form. It's a form of cowardice, and it's and again, it's a form of self. It's a form of humiliation. You shouldn't engage with it. There's ways of dealing with things. If someone was transgender before me and they obviously presented as a woman, I wouldn't just purposely call them a man or he. I would just call them by their name. Okay, because if they're in their place of work, fine. I would just call them by their name. But that doesn't mean to say that on the principle,
it's a difficult one, because I've been in this situation. When do you refer to them as a she? I mean, if they've got kind of long hair, a high voice, they've had their balls chopped off.
Hardly any of them, by the way. Hardly any of them do that. That's like a tiny percentage.
No. But if they have gone all the way, do you think they've earned the right to get a
I would refer to them. I would try and refer to them as their name pretty much all the time. But I would be very slow.
I know what you mean.
Pronoun, because again, to me, that would be a form of lying. But then on the other hand, so that's what I would try and do.
What about Jan Morris?
Oh, who's that?
Formerly James Morris. Well, James Morris was one of the first kind of, very early sex change. Was a travel writer. Became Jan Morris.
Well, I mean, I just use their name. You can change your name. You can't change your gender. But
Yeah.
again, if you're out in a restaurant or something and you're having lunch with this person and you wouldn't it would actually be confusing in a way to use their old pronoun if everybody else thinks they're a woman and you're referring to them as a he. Well, then you look like the Muppet, right? And it's just not necessary. So, most of these situations.
Daiquiri for the lady.
Well, I never say daiquiri for the lady, James. You might say that. No. I thought
I'm just looking at the clock, Laura. It's so exciting to be back with you, and the band is back together, and it's great. And lots of people are going to be really excited. We are like we're like a pop duo, aren't we? We're like I think we're probably the Eurythmics. Would you say? Would you like to be the Eurythmics?
Maybe. I don't. Yeah, I really, as you know, the Eurythmics is fine. I'm not great with pop.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of other iconic male-female pop duos that we could
that's
emulate.
True. That's true.
I mean, I'd quite like to be the Pet Shop Boys, but they're two men.
Yeah,
no, it doesn't work.
And we have to do movies as well because I liked our movie chat. It was good.
No, we're going to do that. No, it's only that wife's got a Zoom call in the office soon. I just wanted to say the final thing. Yeah. Did you see Alistair Williams, comic, has had his YouTube channel and 50,000 followers just deleted just like that? The purge is getting worse and worse. And I wanted to say to our audience, please make sure that you've got in touch with me by email. I think if you go to my website, delingpoleworld.com, I think there's a thing where you can register your email address, which is kind of helpful because you don't want me suddenly to disappear and not be able to know where I am. It's quite a hassle looking around for me. And maybe I'll put up the details below our Chinwag so that people can. I mean, you can find Laura at Conservative Woman apart from anything else. But it's. I mean, these are definitely worrying times of censorship, and we're going to have to find our little pockets. It is like the Dark Ages, isn't it? Where the monasteries are holding the.
Yeah, but it starts with the simple personal thing of, I don't agree with you on that. This is it. The self-censorship will only get worse. People who self-censor,
you have to stand up. You're right.
It's so bad. It's so bad.
Oh, Laura.
Oh, what?
Laura, I've got to tell you the most amazing story before we go.
Okay.
My mum.
Oh, yeah.
She went to. I mean, mother's been wearing masks throughout because when you're of that generation, I mean, she's 8. She just turned 80, I think. You get ostracized if you don't. I mean, they're all kind of complete bedwetters. And for the same reason, she had to get the vaccine, even though, the experimental gene therapy, even though we all begged her not to, but she couldn't, because her partner and et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, she was in Tesco. One of those big Tesco superstores, which had an escalator in it, and I think it was Tesco. I think it was Tesco. It was one of those stores anyway, and the escalator had broken down.
Right.
And there was this massive queue in front of the lift.
Yeah.
And Mother joined the queue, and she saw to her horror that the lift, which had been designed for 8 people, was carrying one person at a time.
No, it's
everyone
crazy.
was going.
People are crazy.
And this was people deciding this. I mean, there was no security saying they must. And Mother got to about eight in the queue, and said, "Look, this is silly.
Yeah,
we're all perfectly healthy. Most of us are wearing masks, and most of us had our jabs. Why don't we all get in the lift together?"
Yeah.
And another man said, "That's a good idea. Yes, let's do that."
The power of
all
one.
All 8 of them got into the lift together, and I was so proud of my mum to do that. Everyone should be doing this. It doesn't require much, but
I know. I agree. It's the power of one, and actually, it's not the big things. It's small things like that. I am telling you, they are really important. Really, really important. Yeah.
It matters. So you may not all be James and Laura, but you can still be. But you can be James's mum.
Yeah. In fact, no. That stuff is even more important, I think, than our stuff. Oh, it's raining it.
I agree.
Yeah.
We're used to doing this stuff. It's our meat and drink to us. But for bread and butter at least. But for Mother, it took quite courage, I think. And
Yeah, no,
Anyway,
I know.
Laura, it's really great to have you back on to be back together, and
Yes.
we'll do another one next week.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Cool.
thank you.
Excellent. Take it
Okay.
easy, James. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.